One of the key attitudes necessary to cultivate a mindfulness practice is that of acceptance, the act of seeing things the way they actually are without trying to alter them. If you were cold, then you were cold. If you were lonely, then you were lonely. If you were bored, you were bored. There is no need, and in fact it's of little use, to try to ignore, deny, or avoid whatever is occurring in this moment. Acceptance is therefore the nod or tip of the hat to the reality that is presently happening. It doesn't mean that you have to like what is occurring or feel helpless in its grip. It's just a conscious acceptance of this particular moment and whatever is occurring in it. Non-acceptance, on the other hand, becomes an act of resistance to this world that we inhabit, to argue and fight against the reality of the moment. I don't want this feeling. It shouldn't be happening. Why me? Only sets you up for failure. Denying the reality of the moment is a bit like fighting against gravity. You probably know what I mean. Many times over the years I've tried to convince myself that the reality of the moment isn't happening, or more often shouldn't be happening. Well, I'm batting a perfect 1,000 in my failure to do this. Have you had any more success? I don't mean those momentary reprieves like engaging in another distraction or having a drink. I'm meaning a sustained and long-term refutation of what is actually occurring. And what has been the cost, physically, emotionally, socially, economically, of engaging in this quixotic losing endeavor? Acceptance, it must be noted, does not equate with passivity. It simply means that as an initial step, you see, feel, experience, and acknowledge the reality of the moment. Non-acceptance drains your energy and focus in a losing struggle to debate either what is actually occurring or whether it should be occurring. Non-acceptance demands an incredible amount of striving to try to make things different than they are. By not accepting the moment and whatever is arising, we don't have a clear understanding of what it is we're dealing with, and this in turn means that we have little hope of appropriately meeting the situation. Instructors in the mindfulness program at the University of Massachusetts Medical School found that before individuals could even begin to deal with their pain, they needed to accept it. Now, they describe acceptance as putting out the welcome mat to the pain, putting out the welcome mat. Only then does it become possible to change one's relationship to the pain. As long as we resist even accepting that there is pain, when we say, I don't want it, I never asked for it, it's not fair, we wage a continual fight with the actual experience that is occurring in that moment. And any fight with reality is guaranteed to be a losing one. Instead, it is possible to accept things as they are. This doesn't necessarily mean that you have to like everything that is occurring. Rather, it means merely accepting it. Only then will you be able to fully participate in life, to make the changes that will ultimately better your own life, the lives of those around you, as well as the world. Acceptance, therefore, is a very active process. There is nothing passive about it. I imagine acceptance as a pregnant pause, a moment in time to objectively recognize what is actually occurring before responding in any way. Mindfulness is a powerful teacher of acceptance. In mindfulness meditation practice, we cultivate acceptance by taking each moment as it comes along, being fully with it just as it is. We try not to impose our judgments, demands, critiques, commentary, or any other reactions to what we are thinking, feeling, or experiencing. The goal is simply to accept it. And why do we accept it? Because it just is. It is occurring right now in this moment. Reflections on acceptance and aging. So what about acceptance during our aging years? As you have no doubt experienced, acceptance of the aging process is typically associated with losses. Like it or not, aging asks us, through some variation from a whisper to a shout, to accept that we are not as energetic, that we are not as cognitively sharp, or that our skin is not as smooth and wrinkle-free as it used to be. The cultural emphasis on what we have lost as we age is mirrored in the daily bombardment of advertising, tallying not only our losses, as if we haven't already noticed, but also presenting the fantasy that in one easy step it is possible to painlessly purchase reprieves. For example, a new cell phone automatically brings membership in the in group. A nightly skin cream has you dancing in the moonlight with the partner of your dreams. Buying the new red coupe makes you feel 20 years younger. Have you tried any of these? Are they working for you? I'm guessing that if such purchases had been successful, you probably would not be listening to this broadcast. But I would suggest that acceptance of aging is also a gift. It provides an opportunity to boldly let go of self-limiting beliefs that have laid unchallenged through the years, but nevertheless are ones that you have relied upon to define who you are. Aging can also nudge your courage to greet unacknowledged personal attributes and capabilities that have laid dormant through the years. To reclaim or even claim for the first time a more realistic acceptance of what constitutes this life of yours is possible because you are older, hopefully wiser, but most definitely because you are more aware of the decreasing years available to you. In addition, it should be noted that Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, posits that there is a developmental imperative during the second half of life that pushes us to become the unique individuals we are, to become more than the limited sense of self that we have often believed and embraced. How did we get so small? How did we develop our initial, albeit limiting sense of self? To watch my 2-year-old granddaughter running and playing in the sand on the Oregon coast beach is to witness pure, unbridled delight. Her continuous laughter crescendos into squeals of joy as her little bare feet run into and then quickly away from the rising tide. Her unabashed pleasure and lack of self-consciousness, just being in this moment, makes her oblivious to anything or anyone. To watch her wondrous expression of elation that each of us is capable of is a joy in and of itself. But it also begs the question, what happened to us as adults that so often inhibits natural expressions of the raw emotion of joy, or of wonder, or of risk-taking? The poet Robert Bly writes of the early developmental process within each of us, which learns what is acceptable and what is not acceptable about who we are. These dictums arise throughout our younger years from various sources, such as from parents, friends, teachers, religious instruction, and societal norms. Personal aspects that are judged unacceptable, initially by others and later by ourselves, are stuffed into what Bly characterizes as an invisible bag that we then drag around behind us. Bly laments that this process is so powerful and effective that by the time he and his brother were 12 years old, they had each stuffed much of what was considered objectionable about themselves into their bags and became known as the nice Bly boys. This also meant, however, that their bags were already a mile long. By the time we hit adulthood, the bag we drag around behind us is even longer, growing in size in subsequent years as the additional creeds demanded from relationships, work, and societal expectations regarding what is age and gender appropriate are added to it. While I agree with Bly that each of us has created this invisible bag, we have also been responsible for maintaining the deposits as unwanted and therefore discarded. We have come to believe that an acceptable self-definition demands that this bag be kept under lock and key. But don't be fooled. While these disowned aspects of yourself may not be consciously expressed, they are not forgotten. For example, have you ever been shocked by an unexpected and unfounded judgment that you made about someone? By an abrupt critical statement that you blurted out? By an erotic fantasy that made you blush? By an action that was followed by your quizzical admonition of, "Where did that come from?" Well, it probably came from the contents of your long bag. Depth psychology deems these contents the shadow parts of ourselves, a metaphor for all we cannot or do not want to see of ourselves. Disowned aspects of yourself. Kate came to therapy feeling listless and unexcited about her life. While she did acknowledge a sense of success and satisfaction having parented her 3 now-grown daughters, and having built a strong social network over the years, as well as being of service to her community through volunteer activities, a nagging unease would, however, not be silenced. Although she did not self-diagnose as being depressed, As she turned 57 years of age, Kate could no longer convince herself that she was happy and content with her life. Therapy helped Kate explore the long bag she had been dragging around behind her. Starting with early childhood memories, she recalled the many messages she had received over the years. For example, she was not allowed to be too rambunctious, was to always share, to be responsible, to care for her younger siblings before playing herself, and to never boast about her accomplishments. Marriage had taught Kate that she was not allowed to be angry, that she must be upbeat no matter what was happening around her, and be supportive of her husband's career as well as vocational interests. Her social circle demanded that she be content with her life and that she ought not to complain because clearly others in the world were worse off. Kate's process of learning and then internalizing what was acceptable and what was not is no different from our own personal experiences. Each bag is without doubt a reflection of one's individual journey, although there probably are a number of common deposits that most bags share. Attributes such as being greedy, selfish, angry, unreliable, lazy, manipulative, egocentric, inconsiderate, demanding, impulsive, untrustworthy, and deceitful are likely core aspects that society, and therefore most people, do not characterize as positive. Quite simply, who wants to have these characterizations? Well, likely no one, so they become unacceptable parts of ourselves that we deposit into our personal bag. Suppressing these negative personality attributes does have some limited benefit, as it probably allows for more harmonious social relationships, at least at a superficial level. And to be clear, Kate's goal to explore the shadow parts of herself didn't include pulling the disowned parts of herself from the bag and unleashing them on the world and those around her. Rather, the purpose was to allow her to understand that many of the disowned aspects of herself are shared by all humans. We each have the capacity to demonstrate attributes such as these, but that doesn't mean anyone, including Kate, needs to do so. But denying even having the capacity for any of these can restrict and limit our emotional well-being. One funny and insightful story from the psychologist and Western Buddhist teacher, Dr. Jack Kornfield, illustrates our often misguided understanding of who we are expected to be and the common non-acceptance of shared human qualities. He writes, "If you can sit quietly after a difficult conflict with your spouse, if in a financial downturn you remain perfectly calm, if you can see your neighbor travel to far-off, fantastic, and exotic places without a twinge of jealousy, if you can fall asleep after a particularly difficult day without a drink or pill, if you can happily meet whatever is placed in front of you, if you can always find contentment no matter what struggles befall you, you are probably a dog." As she developed a mindfulness practice, Kate came to recognize that there were times when she was in fact angry, times when she didn't feel very charitable, when she wanted to do things just for herself, and when she felt a deep sense of pride in her accomplishments. These were new revelations that percolated into her consciousness, and with a developing sense of acceptance of all that makes her human, Kate was able to develop a new and healthier relationship with these previously disowned aspects of herself. It didn't mean that she had to like all of them, or to act them out when they arose, but rather to initiate a process to broaden her sense of self. Acceptance of these previously unacknowledged feelings allowed Kate to expand her emotional life beyond the tight and unforgiving box that she had been inhabiting and in fact had created. Though she was not always skillful in expressing her newly accepted but previously disowned parts of herself, Kate began to experience what she characterized as a larger life, and often felt that she was coming home to herself. Unacknowledged positive aspects of yourself. Our long bags also contain unacknowledged positive traits, capabilities, and interests that we have not accepted as our own. By opening our own long bag, we can allow ourselves to discover unclaimed personal gifts, such as being more capable than we ever believed ourselves to be, to travel on our own to near and far off places, to build wooden children's toys, to succeed in learning a new language or other skill, to sharing ourselves through volunteer activities, to run for elected office, to follow our long buried and forgotten dreams of playing the piano, to even risk being vulnerable while loving another. Kate came to acknowledge that she had a creative self that she had never developed or even explored. Once she realized this interest and was able to accept it as an unlived aspect of herself, she allowed herself to start delving into potential options for its expression. She was not sure what her creative outlet might entail, so she began taking drawing and painting classes at the local college. Nothing clicked, however, as she did not feel inspired or satisfied with these mediums. But not being easily discouraged, Kate continued her exploration and enrolled in an introduction to photography class, which did prove to be a winner. Like a light bulb illuminating a darkened room, Kate found photography to be exciting and satisfying, so continued taking further courses. Unacknowledged, her creative side had been dormant, but by allowing and accepting the embryonic seed of the desire for creativity, she was able to enlarge and enrich her life and enjoy a newfound sense of self. Kate's path to exploring her creativity is typical. This is often how we go about embracing unacknowledged aspects of ourselves. Kate's creative interests and capabilities were largely unknown to her, so she wasn't able easily and confidently to identify what medium would best satisfy them. The early path is therefore often one of trial and error. Identifying a previously unacknowledged personal aspect requires taking a step towards what you believe and feel may be an option. When this forward movement is met with energy and motivation, try it out. It may be what you were looking for, or it may not. It may even feel difficult as new skill development takes time. The only judge is yourself. If your emotional reaction and accompanying energy is strong, continue taking steps towards the goal. If the energy and interest is not there, well, switch gears and try a different avenue, a different task, or component of what you feel to be an unacknowledged aspect of who you are. Accepting aging is an opportunity. Aging provides an opportunity to look, however tentatively, into the bag that we have all created, the bag that holds the shadow aspects of ourself. It takes considerable energy on emotional, physical, and psychic levels to keep the shadow bag closed, and as we age, it can become even more constricting and intolerable. Acceptance of the disowned and unacknowledged parts of ourselves begins the initiation into a new relationship with all that we are. Undertaken in a conscious and ethical manner, this exploration and acceptance of our disowned and unacknowledged inner constituents is incredibly freeing. It allows us to know on a visceral level what it is like to take off shoes that have been too small for us, shoes that we have mistakenly believed to be the only ones that we could wear. And by extension, it allows us to recognize that we have been living a life that was too small for us, a life that we have mistakenly believed is the only one for us. Shadow work is a lifelong process. As you become more aware through living mindfully, you will continue to meet limitations that you have imposed on yourself throughout your life, both consciously and unconsciously. Jungian psychology identifies shadow work as proffering one of the most significant paths to become the individual, the full individual that you truly are. There are many different strategies for exploring your shadow. Mindfulness represents a good entry into this process. Engaging in the formal practice of sitting meditation or walking meditation allows you to see the thoughts and emotions that keep arising and become challenges to maintaining your awareness in this moment. Each of us has our own unique top 10 intrusions that play over and over again. While the formal mindfulness practice is not the place to further explore what these thoughts and emotions are, since our emphasis is to train the mind to focus on just one anchor of attention, over time, when you come off the cushion, you can consciously explore more of these intrusions, when and where they arose, how realistic these intrusions are, and most importantly, do you really have to believe them? As we will discuss later, bringing a mindful awareness to all aspects of your daily life will extend your capacity to pay attention, on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. This expanding awareness will allow you to see the ways in which your daily thoughts, beliefs, feelings, and actions limit your acceptance of all of who you are. Becoming aware of your fears and how they stop you from acting. Becoming aware of your judgments of others and how they flare up unexpectedly. Becoming aware of the way your energy flags when you are expected to meet someone else's expectations or needs. Becoming aware of what's happening inside you when you feel the urge to punish someone. Becoming aware of how you tend to shut down emotionally in the presence of others. Becoming aware of the way your repetitive daydreams of a different life are met with intense inner scorn and anger. Becoming aware when you just know that you could be happy if only. If only. These are all invitations to look inside the long bag you have been dragging behind you. This extended exploration of persistent and intrusive beliefs, feelings, and actions can help you consciously challenge the parameters of this life that you have created. You may find many beliefs and feelings that serve you well and that you want to keep. However, there are likely others that upon deeper reflection, you recognize, even tentatively, are not serving you well. What disowned and unacknowledged parts of you have been stuffed into your long bag? Which of those are impeding your ongoing development? What are you going to do with them? Such questions demanded of a conscious life, no matter what age you may be. It's important to note that to explore our shadow sides is not an easy task. It takes courage. By this time in our aging lives, however, many of us have internalized the belief that these disowned and unacknowledged elements are not acceptable. And I don't mean to suggest that it is easy to simply accept previously unacceptable aspects of yourself. However, to begin meeting and then accepting these disowned portions of our shared humanity, as well as unacknowledged aspects of our unique individuality, is to begin establishing a new and healthier relationship to our whole being. One reality of aging is that the time available to live this life is getting shorter. As the Catholic priest, Father Alfred de Souza, observed, "For a long time it had seemed to me that life was about to begin, real life. But there was always some obstacle in the way, something to be got through first, some unfinished business, time still to be served, a debt to be paid. Then life would begin. Then life would begin. At last it dawned on me that these obstacles were my life. So treasure every moment you have and remember that time waits for no one." Each of us has lived a long time in this constructed life that we believed was all there was. You have the capacity to at least explore, if not reshape, this life of yours. But it must begin with an acceptance of you, every part of you, even those parts that were unacceptable for so long. Aging can be the gift to boldly and courageously ask, if not now, when?